We're gonna swim, bike, and run in the Kona sun. We're gonna swim, bike, and run in the Kona sun 2021.
Poncho Man bringing us home. Like we were right there. This is Breakfast with Bob, not quite Kona edition. We're brought to you by Hoka One One, by Credo Tri, Four Seasons Walleye, Challenge Daytona Form Goggles, Canyon Bikes, Normatec, Amp Human, VeloFix, UCAN, and our Challenged Athletes Foundation. Our next guest coming off an amazing race at Ironman Florida after Ironman World Championship. Mr. Ben Hoffman, and more importantly, Josie joins him. How you doing, Ben and Josie?
We're doing really well, Bob. Thanks for having us on. It's a crazy year, but we're excited to be doing this right now. It's good memories.
I bet you Josie's pretty excited to have Daddy home.
Yeah, she is. That's definitely been the silver lining this year. Is more time with the baby girl, and it's pretty special. Yep.
Wait, is someone just turned one?
She just turned one September 9th, so I'm going to hand her off to Kelsey now. They're going to go for a little run, but she just turned one September 9th, so she's walking all around the house. We've lost control of the situation, but it's all really fun, man.
That is like the coolest thing. So when you started working with Ryan Bolton, and obviously the guy from Harambe Project and working with so many world-class athletes, what did you gain from that? Because it took a while, right? It was sort of a process before we saw the running results that we knew were coming.
Yeah, I would say, for me, it was the ability to train with a few of these other athletes that are elite marathoners and just sort of see the style of training they did, the way they approached, the daily training for running. And then, just the belief and confidence, I think, in my run. I think that it was there, like you said, for a while. I didn't totally put it on display maybe in the races, but a lot of this is just kind of the mental confidence, right? And, that's really what I think I've gained the most, is a belief in myself and my ability to perform on the run. Whereas before I maybe thought of myself as more of a strong cyclist. And now I think of the run as like kind of my number one weapon, actually.
Was it pretty scary? I mean, all of a sudden you're running with Boston Marathon champions and some of the most elite runners on the planet. And like you said, you didn't think of yourself as a runner at that point.
Yeah, it definitely is intimidating. I remember showing up to a few of those first runs and being pretty scared. But the truth is, man, that these people are extremely inviting, and they're great athletes, great people, and I think they were just excited to train with actually somebody that did triathlon and hear a little bit about my story. And I did treat it like a race though. Those first mornings, I feel like I was I had the butterflies and I was nervous showing up and getting up early, making sure I was totally ready. So good memories though.
What did you learn from, I remember talking to Josh Cox after he trained in Kenya, and he said, what I learned from running with the Kenyans was when we rest, we're going grocery shopping and we're doing emails. And when the Kenyan athletes rest, they're laying on a rock and watching the world go by, right? They really believe in rest. What did you learn from running with some of the Kenyan athletes?
Well, one of the great stories on that actually is Caro, who you mentioned, the one, the Boston Marathon, who Ryan still coaches. She actually stayed with us at our house here in Tucson, Arizona, during one of the training blocks before Kona a couple of years ago, and she stayed in our basement. And I kid you not, I mean, most days she had 2 runs, obviously, but she would sleep just almost every hour between the runs. I mean, it was crazy. I didn't think it was possible to sleep that much, but she would just eat her food after a run, go downstairs, read a book, fall asleep for 3, 4, 5 hours in the middle of the day, get up, do another run, and then she'd be in bed by 7 or 8 o'clock at night. So what I thought, was getting 8 hours a night was enough. My eyes were definitely opened. So pretty impressive. I mean, she's at least as good at napping as she is at running marathons.
So in Kona this year, when you have the second fastest run of the day and you get 4th place, that's sort of a season, right? You finished up, you're one spot off the podium, but you just had a phenomenal day. To say, hey, I'm going to come back 3 weeks later and go do Ironman Florida. Was that something you were planning ahead of time, or was it, you know what, I'm feeling pretty good?
It was definitely more the latter. I mean, it was not a plan beforehand. And I think it was basically the Sunday after Kona that I had to sign up, because at that point it was a 3-week out kind of thing. So I had to make sure I was signed up right like the day after Kona, basically. So yeah, I mean, it really wasn't a plan of mine. I sent the email on that Sunday to get signed up. And yeah, I just I think I was riding a little bit of a high from the race. And I felt like, as much as I emptied the tank in Kona, I felt like I still had a little bit more to give for the year. So, and it turned out that I did. I mean, I was, those weeks between in the training, I still did some hard training between Kona and Florida. But let the body recover, got a few good sessions in, and then, yeah, I went to Florida. And, to me, I saw it as an opportunity, right? Where use this fitness, see if I can do something. If it doesn't go well, I just got fourth in the world. It's not, the end of the world. I'll come back and qualify for Kona early in the next part of 2020. Which I'm glad I did this now, because I have my qualification done early for Kona 2021. But yeah, it was a cool day, man. It was really cool to ride that wave and to finish off the season with a bang in November.
Well, and it's funny, I was talking to Joe Skipper, same type of thing. He finished sixth in Kona, and he said he learned last year, because he did Arizona, he said it was almost too big a gap, because you recovered and then you started a training build, and he had a crap race in Arizona. He said he'd rather have that 3 weeks, because you really can't do anything after World Championship, and then you have a build and you're back in the game, rather than having that 5 weeks between. Did you find that 3 weeks actually worked for you?
I really did. I mean, I felt like it was kind of the perfect interval of time where, you have enough time. When you're as fit as you are in Kona, your body actually does recover relatively quickly. I mean, it's obviously a massive effort, but you have enough time, in that first week or 10 days to recover. And then, like I said, you get a couple of decent sessions in, maybe one really good bike, one good run, and then keep the swim up, and you're ready to go. You don't have to do a lot of training. You kind of just let the body and mind recover, and then use that fitness again. So for me, it was pretty cool. I've never done that before, but I definitely learned, and, maybe it'll be something I apply in the future. It's always, tempting to try something different for Kona. For example, it'd be cool to do an Ironman maybe 3 or 4 weeks before Kona, but it's also risky. So I'm not saying that's what I'm going to do, but maybe a race after Kona again next year would be, something I would consider.
So 7:48:29, the fastest American time ever, right? And then the fastest American marathon ever, 2:36:09. Did you surprise yourself with that? Because again, it's 3 weeks after Ironman World Championship, where you finished fourth, and then you're running 2:36. And meanwhile, you've got Joe Skipper running 2:39. So you guys, the battle there was pretty amazing.
It really was, man. And I did surprise myself. I went into that race, like, again, kind of saying, I feel like there's an opportunity here. Maybe I can do something special. But I went into it thinking, okay, the number one goal for sure, I had sort of a hierarchy of, a few things I wanted to do. Number one was to try to qualify for Kona. There were 2 spots there for the men. So I knew I needed to finish either first or second. And I was that sort of person, that magic person, first out basically in Kona in fourth place. I didn't automatically requalify. So I was like the first guy that had to go get a spot. So anyway, first goal was to go down there and, get the spot. Second goal was to, go the fastest I'd ever gone before, hopefully break 8 hours, and then maybe break the course record. So those are some of the things that were on my mind. And the day came together. I mean, I really had a great swim. I was out right away. It was actually kind of a freezing cold morning. So I wore a jacket through the first 50 miles of the bike ride because I was freezing, and that probably cost me a little bit of time. But yeah, the running weather was perfect. I mean, it was in like mid 60s or something, and it was just perfect. So I attacked the run course. I went out, and I think I went through the half at like 1:15:30 or 1:16. And I was like, well, this is either going to go really well or really bad. And fortunately, I was able to hold on. But massive kudos to Joe Skipper. He crossed the line and beat me by about a minute or two there. And I just, I have to tip my hat to him. He had a great day. I knew coming off a 6th in Kona that he was going to have a good day. And he put it all together, and he really, he battled when it got tough. When he knew I was closing on him on the marathon, he really just held tough. And like you said, he ran 2:39 off of a monster, like 4:05 bike ride. I mean, a guy absolutely deserved to win that day, and I did everything I could, but he was just a little bit better.
So when I look at the bike splits from Kona, right? Jan 4:16, T.O. 4:18, Sevi 4:15, Cam 4:14, Joe Skipper 4:16, Ben Hoffman 4:24. So knowing you, you're going, okay, I know what I need to do here. I need to figure out how I can get in the teens and still run my low 240s.
Definitely. Yeah, I think that I look at last year, and I mean, the truth is, I had a great race in Kona, 8:02, whatever it was. And I feel like,
Yeah.
I never believed that I'd be going that fast when I first started racing in Kona in 2009. I think Crowe broke the course record with that 8:03:56 or whatever it was. And we were all just blown away that he had done that. And then, the game just keeps getting, more intense and faster. So anyway, I'm thrilled to have gone that quick. I will say I didn't think I had my perfect day in Kona. I mean, I think we look at Jan's race, and I think he said it multiple times that he really just had that special day. And I can be honest with myself and say, on the bike, especially last year, I was like, okay, I'm holding okay power, I'm doing all right, but I just didn't have that extra gear. I didn't feel like I had everything. And the run went really well. And I finished really well, but I still think there's more, to be gained out there. So yeah, I'm just kind of, I'm going to go back to work for sure. I'm going to focus on the bike and try to be a little bit more up there. But it's always that balancing act. You got to save enough to run well. And historically in Kona, having a fast marathon is what you need to really win the race. And now I know I can do that. So like you said, go back, hone the details a little bit more on the bike and the swim maybe, and then execute on race day.
I love how competitive it's gotten. When you look at Kona, Tim O'Donnell in second, 7:59, Sebastian Kienle, 8:02:04 in third, and then you 8:02:52 in fourth. I mean, you're talking 3 minutes separating from being second to being fourth. You really can't afford to give up any time. Transitions, everything's become so important because, and even with Joe Skipper, right? Imagine if there was only one spot in Florida, right, for Kona, and you go and you run a 2:36 and don't get a spot. So it's like the racing is getting faster and faster and faster. How do you adapt to that?
I mean, I think you're absolutely right, and it's really, to me, it's actually really exciting. I mean, I think once again, when I first started racing in 2009 in Kona, I was like, we didn't dream of these times, and especially not multiple people doing these times. And so here we are 10, 11 years later, and it's happening. And what I think it does, depending on your personality and your outlook, it helps you raise your game ultimately, right? I mean, you have to do it. If you want to be competitive, you've got to figure out a way to be faster. That said, I will also kind of, I will say that I think you have to be careful with it. It's a slippery slope where I've done it before, 2014, second place, come back in 2015. I try to change a little bit too much. And I think, Jan had an exceptional day. Like we said, he was in a different stratosphere. I don't expect him to necessarily do that every single year. As good as he is. So I think for me, I look at it more like, okay, TO is in second place at 7:59. Like you said, that's 3 minutes away. I don't need to change everything. I just need to improve things incrementally in each discipline. And that should put me in the mix for the race. And then it comes down to just sort of guts and heart, and if you can make it happen in that moment and attack when you need to. So yeah, as much as I want to say I'm going to do something drastic and crazy, I'm not. I'm going to keep doing a lot of the things that I know work really well and try to look for those incremental improvements in each discipline.
It was interesting when I was talking with Josh Amberger the other day, and he was talking about walking a big chunk of the marathon this year in Kona. And what he brought up was being in South Africa and watching you with a light stick, walking through that marathon, and because it was important, right? You wanted to finish what you started. You didn't go there not to finish the race. When you have an experience like that, where you knew going in that it was going to be a tough day, do you draw on that when you're in races now, knowing how hard that day was, and that now you can use that as fuel for the races you're doing today?
Absolutely. You definitely use those experiences as reference point, when you're out there suffering. And actually, to take it even a step further, what I would say is that what I've discovered in my racing career is that, and I'm 37 now, I just turned 37 in August, and I'm not, the youngest guy out there anymore, but I hopefully am in that sort of sweet spot window of my best years in Kona and at Ironman distance. But what I've learned finally after all these years is that I really enjoy the suffering, and that's actually why I'm out there. That's what I'm looking for, because that's the most honest feedback you're going to get. And it's sort of, that question of, do you have it? And you have to answer it. And you don't get that in everything else in life, that sort of really transparent and clear feedback. So yeah, it's kind of funny. I think the knee-jerk reaction is to push back against that and say, oh, it's painful, it's tough, it's whatever. But I actually want those things because they're the transformative experience that makes you grow as a person and be better. So yeah, I mean, I'm just chomping at the bit. I'm looking forward to being back in Kona next year, and just testing myself and seeing what I have on the day, and getting into those moments where you're like, man, this is incredibly difficult and I have to answer the call.
One of my favorite images from this year's Kona is here's Jan Frodeno coming across the line, breaking the record, right? Breaking Patrick's record, going 7:51, totally on the top of his game. As soon as he came across that line, you see him collapse, right? You see Mark Allen and Dave Scott basically holding him up. And to me, that's sort of the epitome of what Ironman racing is, because 1 second you were on the top of the world, and the next second you can't even stand up. Is that part of the draw for you?
It definitely is. I mean, I think we are some of the best athletes in the world, when we're razor sharp and ready for these big races. And yet the Ironman is the great equalizer, whether you're finishing in 17 hours or in 7 hours and 51 minutes, you're going to be tested out there, and it's going to take everything you have. And yeah, it's going to bring you to your knees eventually, and I think that's, like, again, what I'm saying, we're really looking for that, because it's just such a cool test. And, I think depending on your personality, that's what you're looking for. That's what you want. You want to be tested, and you want to try to answer the call and really bring your A game.
Looking back at your career, what do you look at as the toughest moment for you during your racing career?
Well, I mean, the one you just mentioned in South Africa certainly was, and that for a variety of reasons. I was in a lot of physical pain, and also mentally too. I mean, it was incredibly difficult to be out there for over 12 hours and, be walking into the sunset. And it's not something I really ever envisioned for my Ironman racing career, to be out there till dark. But it was a really cool mental test as well. And I felt like the community really lifted me up and kept me going. And I sort of had this epiphanies, early in early in the marathon, where I was walking and I was thinking, well, I can go back to my hotel room and feel bad for myself, but time is going to pass at the same speed as it would if I'm out here walking and experiencing this and really wrapping my head around it. And I think it also did, it really drove it home to be out there too. So it was a memory that really stuck with me. And I can still really recall it very clearly now. But another one would definitely be 2014 in Kona, where that was Jan's first race there, and he was definitely nipping at my heels. I mean, mile 22, 23, he was only about 10 or 20 seconds behind me. And I remember kind of coming up the last final hill there before Palani, and I just sort of put in a bit of a surge, and I was like, I know this course. I know if I can get over this and get down the hill on Palani, I'll finish it off. And, I just remember your legs feel like lead. You're just struggling. But, I dug deep, pushed a little bit harder, and got it done, held on for second place. So, yeah, I mean, every Ironman, honestly, there's the dark period, but those are two of them, I think, that kind of stick out for me.
And what do you look back as your favorite memory from racing?
Wow. I have a lot of them. It's hard to just say one for sure, but definitely I was super proud to be second in 2014 in Kona. And, and then I think last year too, I mean, it was a big deal for me to come back from injury in 2018 and have a really good season in 2019 with a win at South Africa. Fourth place in Kona with a quick time, and then also second place in Florida with one of the fastest times ever. So, yeah, I think, that was a big deal for me, because you have a lot of self-doubt. I mean, even at our level, with all the training we do, it can still creep in. And I think, especially after a tough year like that, coming off of injury, you're not sure if this is going to be kind of the death knell for you or something like that. But yeah, to come back and really make it count and actually improve and be better than I've ever been before was pretty special.
How have you changed? Like you said, you're 37 now. You've had to adapt to these ITU guys coming into the sport. How have you changed as an athlete to be as successful now as you've ever been?
That's a great question. I mean, I think, you're always paying attention to your competition and noticing what's changing in the sport and trying to stay up on the technical matters. But a lot of it comes down to continuing the same sort of, fundamental cornerstones that I've always done, which is, focusing on what I think works best in my own life. And a lot of that is based on building the team around me that I really believe in and that really supports me and, gives me that extra energy to be out there every day training and then also to execute on race day. So Yeah, I mean, Kelsey, my wife is an amazing piece of that. Ryan, my coach that you mentioned, I have a physio, massage therapist, everybody who's on my team, and now my baby daughter, Josie, is a big piece of that too. Where, I think about her all the time when I'm training, and it's definitely a motivator in the racing as well. So I would say, at the end of the day, what it really comes down to is, again, as much as there's external things and you're aware of them, there's only so much you can control, and most of that has to do with yourself. So I try to kind of keep the focus on my immediate environment and my circle, and making that as strong as possible so I can keep improving every single year.
Love it. Hey, Benny, thanks so much for taking time, and thanks for having Josie on at the beginning of the interview. It was great to see the 1-year-old. How fun was that, having her first
Yeah,
birthday party? Was that pretty cool?
it was pretty wild, man. She's every day it just seems like something new. She's growing so fast, and like I said, now she's walking and she's starting to talk a little bit more. She's got the teeth popping out. It's like every day is something new. So it's really, again, the silver lining of this year to be able to be home with her a little bit more and spend that time, and maybe have a little bit more physical energy, since I'm not training quite as hard as I would be right now for Kona. But crazy year. Definitely looking forward to getting back to some racing next year, especially. And yeah, hopefully we get to see you in person sometime soon.
Exactly. Ben Hoffman has been our guest, everybody. This again is Breakfast with Bob, not quite Kona edition. Hang in there. We'll be right back. Thanks, Benny.
Thanks, Bob.